Christmas Day, 1982. After years of whining, begging, and pleading, my parents finally gave in and bought an Atari 2600. Video games were the craze.
Just last night,
People were
I was
excited.
lost in the jungle with Pitfall Harry.
Trippy!
Too excited.
You really think you're ready for all that? I'm ready! Fine. Cash your charge.
The television screamed at us to get video games.
Atari Odyssey 2 and Television, Astrocade, Vectrex, Arcadia, ColecoVision. Crazy Eddie's got them all. All the latest game cartridges, too. All at the absolute lowest prices anywhere. Crazy Eddie's your video game center. The only place to buy video games and game cartridges. So get a video game for Christmas now. You're in Crazy Eddie's greatest Christmas sale ever. His prices are insane.
We were all coaxed by promises of the arcade experience at home. Yeah, right. What we got was bad ports of good arcade games. And worse games based off of popular movies. To play the good games, we had to go to the arcade. For me, the arcade was 7-Eleven. When they opened up the little arcade, there were only 4 games. Donkey Kong, which introduced Mario to the world. Punch-Out, a fun boxing game in which you fought politically incorrect stereotypes.
Pizza pasta! Vodka Draginski! Ladies and gentlemen, Dragon Champ!
Dragon's Lair, which was without a doubt the most visually impressive.
Fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon.
And there was my favorite game in the 7-Eleven arcade, and that was Mr. Do. Guide Mr. Doozy tries to harvest his orchard before the evil bad guys can catch him. Quick, mow a path to the cherries and start picking. But watch out, here comes a bad guy. Throw your Powerball to squelch him. But another is on the way, so run until your Powerball comes back. Yeah, the story was a little bit cheesy, but the game was still a whole lot of fun. The point is to score as many points as possible before you lose all your lives. There are 4 ways to clear the levels. First is to collect all the cherries. If you collect the cherries in clusters without stopping, you receive 500 bonus points. The second way to clear the level is to kill all the monsters that are spawned. You can kill the monsters with your magic ball, but you can only shoot 1 ball at a time, and it takes time for the balls to recharge, so you have to be very careful with your shots. You can also kill the monsters by dropping apples on them. The more monsters that you get with the apples, the more points you get. The third way to clear a round is to spell the word extra. There was 2 ways to make the alpha monsters with the letters on them appear. The first was when you score 5,000 points, one of them would automatically come out on the board. The second is, in the middle of the board there's a treat. When you grab that, an alpha monster will come out accompanied by 3 blue cookie monster looking things that will relentlessly chase you until either you or they are dead. Spell the word extra and you are rewarded with the scene ending, a free guy, and a cutscene. The fourth way to clear the level is to collect a very rare diamond. Sometimes an apple will break and reveal a diamond, which gives you 8,000 points. It also ends the level and you win a free game. The diamond only stays there for 15 seconds, so you have to be quick. Getting the diamond rewards you with a cutscene as well. The game got more and more hectic as you progressed. If your score was high enough, you could enter your initials. This was a big deal because it was how people showed their gaming skills. Coleco released home versions of Mr. Do for the Atari 2600 and the ColecoVision. I begged my parents for a ColecoVision for Christmas because I wanted to play Mr. Do at home whenever I wanted. I received the 2600 version instead. I put the game in and was instantly disappointed. It didn't look the same, it didn't sound the same, you couldn't dig tunnels, the areas were just boxed off. It just sucked. 2 weeks later, my beloved Mr. Do at 7-Eleven was gone. It was replaced with Karate Champ. A terrible game. I walked away from 7-Eleven sad, wondering when I'd get to play Mr. Do again. I got my first job delivering newspapers so I could save up enough money to buy a ColecoVision.
Now you can bring the arcade experience
It boasted the
home
games with a
because
true
your
arcade
vision is our
experience.
vision. ColecoVision.
Mr. Do for the ColecoVision was way better than the Atari 2600 version, but it still wasn't the same as the arcade. There were no cutscenes, it didn't record high scores, and it was just way too easy. Mr. Do was gone and there was nothing I could do about it. Over a decade later, in 1996, the arcade version was released for the Super Nintendo. I was a Sega guy, so I didn't have one. I bought a Super Nintendo in the game. It was almost perfect. It looked and played just like the Mr. Do I had loved. It had the cutscenes, it even had the diamond, which was kind of pointless because you didn't need a free game. All you had to do was hit start and play again. There was a 2-player battle mode that was completely pointless and it really sucked, but I didn't care, I had the classic Mr. Do. My only gripe was that it didn't save the high scores after you turned off the system. In 2012, 30 years after the original release of Mr. Do, I got a Xbox modded with over 10,000 games on the hard drive. All the Mr. Do games are there. They are perfect arcade versions and they even remember the high scores. My 30-year search for a perfect Mr. Do game was over. Mr. Do spawned a few sequels. Mr. Do's Castle was a great game. You ran around a castle with a sledgehammer, knocking bricks down on unicorns. It also had the alpha monsters for an extra life, and it had the diamond, and you still got a free game. Once again, there was a 2600 version that was even worse than Mr. Do was. The ColecoVision and the Atari 5200 versions were pretty accurate translations of the arcade game. The next sequel was Mr. Do's Wild Ride. This game was an insult to the franchise. It was climbing to the top of a roller coaster. It was not a hit, and I only saw the machine once in the arcade at Coney Island. Then there was Do Run Run. I never saw the game in the arcade, and I never heard of the game until I saw it on that modded Xbox with the main emulator on it. It was a confusing disaster which I still don't know how to play. Neo Geo took a crack at reviving the franchise in 1997, but the game lacked the charm and nostalgia of the original. After that, Mr. Do just disappeared. I've been playing games for a long time. Usually I'll buy the new games, I'll play them until I finish them, and then I put them on the shelf where they will most likely never be played again. For me, Mr. Do is timeless. In all my years of gaming, I've never played a game that had an impact on me such like Mr. Do.